Hey everybody, this is Khara and I'm back with my trio. Here we are again. Happy New Year. You want to introduce yourselves?
Liliana and Alex.
Alex Croy.
We have a couple conversations we wanted to touch on today. So the first one is about pivoting and the kinds of clients that you serve. This comes up a lot in the consultations I do. I'm sure it comes up a lot for both of you. Colleagues are asking, how do you change to your ideal client? What if your ideal client changes over time? And so, in full transparency, I've probably pivoted at least 6 times if I actually counted how the clients have shifted from youth and up to high risk, not, excuse me, not high risk, high functioning adults. And so, I wanted to talk about what that looks like. There's a process to that. I think there's an active process and a passive process. So I want to break those down with both of you, if that's okay. Let's
Yes.
start with the passive. The passive might be a clinician saying, you know what, I'm kind of burnt out on this population. I don't love it anymore. Or maybe I never really loved the population. I didn't know what I loved until I got further in the field. So I would define passive as like a more subtle shift towards getting excited about certain clients. So maybe we're not actively marketing for them or seeking them out, but that we start to gravitate a certain kind of client. What are your thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Lilian. Go ahead, Lilian.
When I went to my master's program, I knew I wanted to work with children.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything, and I don't know if you guys remember this, but like I went on my master's program during the week. On the weekends, I was taking classes to become a registered play therapist. Like I just knew. And what I'm doing right now is working with couples. That doesn't mean that I'm not working with children, but I actually enjoy working with couples. Like it energizes me. Um, so that will be like one of those that you're like, I didn't know I was gonna come this way,
Mm-hmm.
yet I enjoy it. That doesn't mean that I have let go of play therapy, but it's
Mhm.
for me, it's a beautiful balance of the two. But this is a perfect example of I just didn't know that I was gonna be heading that way. It also makes sense because I'm a family assistant therapist, so like it does. But I think that's very normal. And yes, that's what we see too with our students, with supervisees, with consultations, which is we create this fantasy of this idea that we're going to be like this straight line in what we're doing. And as older we get, as more experience we acquire, we realize that nothing is straight line. And then we happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like part of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a roller coaster. That's what my life has been like a roller coaster. That's what it is. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes like, it's too scary. But that's the beauty of pivoting. Alex, what will you add?
I think for me, it was I started off with criminal justice, and my work has always been in criminal justice, curriculum based, evidence based, cut and dry, 24, template. This is the way it works. And I started off super, it's like super CBT, curriculum based, 24 relapse prevention, the addiction world of curriculums, right? And then I started realizing when I was in the middle of facilitation and doing therapy that a lot of my depth union work started coming in. And it's like, oh, I'm going to put this in. Oh, I'm going to put this in. And I started realizing I was pivoting away the my way of working, what I had set up as my template, like this is my only way of going. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, now I'm doing. So don't get me wrong, like you said, Lena, I'm still doing a lot of that CBT, DBT work, but my passion, what feeds me and fuels me is depth. And so what I'm noticing is when clients are coming through, that's the referring source, and they start realizing doing their own work in CBT and then putting in those depth concepts. Once they're done with their number of classes, they're staying longer because they're doing their core work from a depth perspective. So it was a beautiful passive transition that the clients are now even doing it as well. Does that make sense? So at the rate that you evolve as a clinician, the rate that you grow as a clinician, you make the changes, it's almost like so will your clients.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that leads to like a level of attraction of like certain clients get attracted to the work that you're offering because it's in alignment with their goals, or maybe they're even subconsciously, maybe they're not even aware that that's what they want until they're there.
Right. Sure.
But something that stood out to both from both of what you said is there's like this rigidity that we come into our profession with. It's like, this is the population I'm going to serve. This is who I'm going to work with for the rest of my life. And I think the three of us can champion that it's okay to pivot in so many ways because of the opportunities that it provides for the clients to actually grow or change more than maybe the first, agenda that we had. But I think that's the whole point, is that we should allow ourselves to be flexible, and to say that I'm only going to work with one population the rest of my life. I don't know how realistic that actually could be because of how we change as people.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, 100%.
So, anyone who talks to me knows that pivoting is a part of who I am. So, like, obviously I'm biased, but I love that you're both able to share some examples of, like, well, this is the passive. I didn't actually like pursue this outright. It just kind of happened. And that can be this beautiful, I know that your word, Alex, is synchrony, right? That happens when we do this.
Yeah.
So, in contrast, I know a lot of people grow the practices really quickly, and then they realize that they want to move towards an ideal client or niche, if you will. And so I want to talk about the active process of what that looks like. So can either of you share your story of, like, was there, like a layoff for couples, was there something you actively invested in? Or Alex, for the population in the deeper work you're doing now, like, I'm curious, would there be an active step for either of you?
I think for me, because I was working with systems, like I noticed that there was like a calling per se. And all of you who know me know that I love to attending trainings. So actively, I started pursuing a specific trainings to work with couples. So from the gut method to EFT from Sue Johnson, then I started searching for those trainings in order for me to become comfortable and competent working with that population. So that's what I moved towards too. And now any training that I do, from EMDR to even like play therapy to, like, I look for couples workshops so that I can continue and actively be growing in this area of this population that I'm working with.
Nice. So very intentional. I love that.
And I think
Alex?
for me, the you guys know what I did. I Life Recovery Center is all about counseling, services, evidence-based model, and then I actively opened up another branch, Transcending Consulting Group. I did Transcending Consulting Group because that's where my teaching, that's where my depth union consulting comes from. And so I said, okay, life recovery is for evidence-based practice. Obviously, everything that you need from court, everything that you need that's structured is life recovery. But everything that you want to do post life recovery on your own, I'm opening this other branch for me specifically that is just depth, whether it be training, consulting, or it be counseling. And so I actively had those two things. So these two things. One is Life Recovery community-based counseling organization with all of the evidence-based practices, and then you got my other baby, which is transcending. And it's like and if you come into transcending, we're going to do a lot of depth work, a lot of active imagination, a lot of soul tending, a lot of training, and so I have that distinct difference. And when people call me and they want to know, oh, I want to get services, let's say, to deal with a lot of my anxiety and stress. Okay, that sounds more like life recovery. Oh, I want to do more depth work. I'm having a lot of dreams. I'm having a lot of a lot of my trauma showing up in my body, and I want to do a lot of work within my body. Okay, that's transcending. And so I'm able to work with those clients. And so there's this I'm able to sit down and differentiate which route to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super important for anyone who decides to grow and expand and diversify their practice in the way that both of you have, of, like, being really clear of, like, this is the kind of client I serve over here versus the kind of client I serve in this arena. And if there is a lot of overlap, which is possible, then I think it's really about making it clear in writing, right? So, like, I'm thinking of how people have certain websites that are separate, or even just like tabs. Like, Liliana, I know that you have like supervision and like public speaking. And Alex, I'm sure you have like a training tab, and we all have our TEDx on a tab. And so I think that's important, to be able to say, like, yes, I might be your catch-all for all the things, but, like, here's all the things I can offer you. And so people can kind of pick and choose or feel empowered to say, like, I want this piece in working with you, or I would like this other thing that you do. And that's been my experience as a consultant, is that I've had a lot of colleagues come to me saying, Khara, I want to do all the things that you do. And I was like, all of them? And they're like, I don't think they even know what they're asking until they see all these things on the website, or, we put together a pamphlet or something of all the things that we each offer. And it's like, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's the beautiful part of pivoting, to say, like, we can attract different clients because we're offering these different services. So I appreciate you both being able to talk about the passive of like naturally having clients attracted to the work we're doing versus the active, which is I'm actively saying I'm offering supervision under this name, or I'm doing this kind of work now, or have a certification to offer this to colleagues. Because I think that is part of how we grow. I don't think it is that linear. As Liliana, you said, it's not linear. It's the roller coaster ride. I love that analogy. Sometimes it's scary, but a lot of times it's just exciting. So for viewers, if you're listening to us talk about this, I hope you're feeling empowered to allow yourself to have a pivot, whether it's active or passive, because that's going to happen. And it's going to keep you from burning out, I would think, because that's probably our biggest risk with the linear move of just like always working with one population. Plus, you might discover some joy in a population you never thought you'd want to work with,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So all sorts of possibilities, but thank you for both talking to me about this. If viewers are listening and saying, hey, I want to know more about this, obviously all three of us do consultations. So by all means, reach out and talk to us further about our pivots, because we've all gone in really fun and interesting ways, if I do say so myself. I'm biased, but I know all the cool things you're both doing. So thank you both for coming on to this video. And our next video, we're going to talk about a complete pivot away from therapy, which is actually the question of when do we retire as therapists? So stay tuned for that video. We'll see you next time.